I can't lie. Can't lie. The Arizona gummies. Yeah. For those that don't know, I'm into some conscious type information. I guess you say conscious. I put it with the quotations. Information, and so just meaning like it's a wide, vast variety of stuff: metaphysics, philosophy, religious, energetic, and holistic information. And so in honor of Black History Month, I wanted to talk about two things: Eurocentric viewpoints and or maybe indoctrination in the film industry. And I also wanted to talk about viewpoints on so-called conscious information and how it relates to the film industry. So with point number one, what do I mean by that? This is kind of weird. Like how I said it was kind of weird, wasn't it? So what I mean is you have all these different terms. You have AD, DP, producer, director, gaffer, the grip, standardized terms. So it's good to have standardized terms because then people don't have to come up with new stuff. It can be a bad thing too though, because it can limit you. The film industry and being Black in the film industry, there's a lot of terms that are preset. So think about it. If you think about historically, people that were making movies, a lot of that structure that is here today is like a Eurocentric structure and template and format. It's saying you have to do it this way. You have to do it this way. You have to use these terms. It has to look like this. There's this rule and there's this rule and there's that rule. A lot of it is just based off of certain opinions. A group of people just said, this is what we like. I want to take a look at it. For example, I'll give you an example with my newest short film, and this is no shade on anybody. I'm just gonna be talking about an experience I had that way I could relate it to people. And some of the stuff is so deep rooted that it may not be noticed. So like I said, I like to talk about certain information. And so sometimes it's from a perspective that people don't ever think about because it could be so embedded into the culture that you don't even notice. So for example, I did a short film. I presented it to some people, got some feedback. I appreciated the feedback. However, one of the things that I heard was, what is the log line for this short film? And I was like, what's a log line? I've never heard of a log line. What is a log line? So I had to look it up. I was like, what is a log line? And it's a sentence to describe what your short is. But then not only was there that question, but some people were like, you gotta have a log line. You can't make a short without a log line. Next time, start with the log line. So technically, I think I did have a log line. I just wasn't familiar with that terminology. Just like a one sentence summary. To go to the extent of saying that you have to have a log line in order to do what you need to do, that's what I'm kind of talking about today. So a lot of these things, it's like, where did that log line come from? Who started that? Why is that the route that you have to go with? And I'm just using this as an example. If you like using a log line or you like doing that and you have all these things that you learn and you went to film school and that's what they say, cool. But what I'm talking about is a contrast between you wanting to come up with the log line because you need to present it, and that's the standardized format that a production company is using, or somebody you're pitching to, that's the terminology that they use, and da-da-da-da-da-da. I get it. However, when you're doing independent work, right, you can do whatever you want to do. If you're making a product, you're making a production, and you write a movie, and you want to put it out, and I don't think it matters if you make a bog line, tog line, hog line, fog line. I think a lot of people, and the reason I'm bringing this up is because you got to look at the origin. Where did this term come from? I'm saying it because this is the main example that I can think of. There's probably many other examples. I just heard about when I did my short, for example, a young lady, a young actress, she wanted to audition, but she asked me, is there going to be an intimacy coordinator on set? I had to look it up. What are you talking about? An intimacy coordinator? So I look it up, and it pretty much is just saying, like, if there's a sex scene, there's going to be somebody to kind of coordinate that scene or whatever. I'm not having a sex scene. I'm having two people sit down on the bed, and they're not going to have sex. We're not shooting a porno here. This is going to be just insinuation. Like, come here, big boy. Some music plays, it cuts scene, and then it goes to the next thing. And then the person that's watching it will be able to see, oh, okay, so they probably had sex. That's what I'm going to guess. I'm just going to fill in the blank, you know. I can understand on a big set why that may be needed. I can also understand, like, if you don't know who you're filming with, then you might have that concern. But at the same time, I guess this is what I'm saying. She didn't want to audition because I said I'm not going to have an intimacy coordinator on there. I am the intimacy coordinator. I'm making sure that we're going to have that discussion before the thing. But because this young lady had a hard set rule that there has to be an intimacy coordinator, which this role actually came out just like 2018, 2017. That's when they started having an intimacy coordinator on the set. Just because she believes that there has to be that, then she was not able to take up an opportunity, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So sometimes certain things could be a block for people because they think that it has to be this way. I went to film school. They say that you have to have a gaffer, you gotta have a grip, you gotta have an AD, then you gotta have the producer to do this. Whereas a few people, you can get together and you can do a lot of different things. You have to use this terminology. You gotta go from step A to then step B, then step C. It can be that. Maybe it helps you. Maybe that's that format or that template will help you to get things done in a certain format, or if you're going to present it to you're going to go work with a certain production company, you want to go work in Hollywood on one of those sets, something like that, it may help you in that format. And let me also throw in this caveat. The language, knowing the language, no different than French, Spanish, knowing the language of anything. You want to know the language. If you're a music producer, you want to know what a bass is, you want to know what the mid is, you want to know what the treble is. You want to know what an equalizer is, a compressor, a reverb, an echo, a delay. You want to know what those effects do. You know the lingo, you know the language. That's different than saying you have to do it this way. You got to do it that way. And I think some people get caught in this mindset that's a Eurocentric mindset where it's no fault of them. They're caught in this Eurocentric terminology to still carry on some of those things and say, no, this is how we got to do it because that's how they did it. It doesn't really make sense. And we're in a whole new age. We're in 2023. Like, you can really make whatever you want to make, do whatever you want to do. So I think that a lot more originality, creativity, and just newness can be made, So I just wanted to bring that up. And I probably didn't say it the perfect type of way, didn't explain it exactly how I wanted, or the best type of way that I could really get the information and point across. And I probably could connect more dots and say it better, but I think I got the gist of it out. So if you understand what I'm saying, it's just, be original and also think about some of those concepts, where they come from. It's kind of like, I'll give you one more thing. Sometimes people make fun of, black people make fun of other black people for not saying a word correctly. They'll say, instead of saying ask, they might say ax, I had to go ask them. And people will make fun of them or whatever. But English isn't necessarily black people's natural language anyway. So to make fun of somebody for mispronouncing a word, that's where I'm saying this is the same type of thing. You kind of get indoctrinated to a mindset. Number 2 that I wanted to talk about. Some people would call some people ashy Hoteppers. Ashy Hoteppers. So when they say an ashy Hotepper, number one, I don't know why ashy has to be added to the word Hotepper. So a Hotepper is somebody essentially that's into like black knowledge, so philosophy, black history, all that type of stuff, and they want to connect it. They talk about Kemet and Egypt and da-da-da-da. But what I wanted to make, the point I wanted to make with this, which kind of ties into what I was just saying on the first point, people will say, this person's an ashy Hotepper. All these Hoteppers trying to get this information out. Blah, 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 blah. Then they'll watch a show like Lovecraft Country, and it'll be the same information. Unbeknownst to them, they won't know, but it'll be the same information that those black lecturers talk about in the show. It's just hidden. We could talk about Africa. We could talk about the African Orishas. Think of one like Thor. Thor with the hammer. They say that is really, I want to say Shango, which was an African god or Orisha. A lot of the Marvel stuff is based off of African stuff, long story short. So when you're watching some of these movies, you don't know what's really in there. So I wanted to just break down, I'm just going to go off the top of my head. I'm just going to name whatever shows I can think of. So number 1, a videographer buddy of mine just put me onto True Detective. He recommended that movie or that show to me, and I started watching. I watched the first season. Check this out. Me listening to those lectures, I learned a lot of information. When I watched the show Doom Patrol, the girl has 72 different personalities. And there's gonna be some spoilers in here, so spoiler alert. Or some of the lectures I listened to growing up, they talked about 72 different grimoires. No, grimoire? But 72 different aspects of a person. So I see the symbology in that when she has these different people that are inside of her. Then they talk about healing your inner child. Then you see her, the girl on the show, she has to heal her inner child. Then it's just a lot to it. So when you watch it, you can see those little things. And then they talk about life after death. You go on this ferry and you get to this place. There's a lot to it. But when you watch Doom Patrol, then you can see that is in the show. Same stuff that the black lecturers are talking about. But they're called the black lecturers ashy Hoteppers. The movie The Matrix, especially like the last one. So Neo, number one, he was reincarnated into a different body. So now he's a new person. He has to remember who he is. And they put him on psychiatric drugs because he's remembering who he is. But they're saying that he's crazy. But the person that's saying that he's crazy is actually an agent. And that agent is trying to keep him from discovering who he truly is, which is the one, or God, if you want to say that. The agent is appearing in different formats as his boss, as the doctor. Let's see, and it's kind of like he's using an avatar. So it's his human body, but Neo's really the one, and he's in a whole nother place. So it's an avatar thing. So then you have the movie Avatar. Then you have Moon Knight. Moon Knight, they talk about the hippopotamus goddess, which is, I forgot her name, but they talk about that. Same thing with the lectures. They talk about that, but then they put it onto a Marvel show, and everybody thinks it's so cool. Lovecraft Country. H.P. Lovecraft, he would make stories based off of dreams that he would have. And those dreams, some people said, may have been channels. And H.P. Lovecraft said they were just fiction stories, and he would put them out. But then they came, and these lecturers would talk about that. Fast forward, Lovecraft Country comes out, people love it. There's magic in it, black people doing magic and rituals. Non-black people doing magic and rituals too, which goes deep because there's certain organizations doing it. Freemasons in there, and it shows. It's really interesting. The OA has a lot of stuff in it too, especially the second season. Second season, they ended it right then. Lovecraft Country, whole lot of stuff in it. They ended it after the first season. And this is stuff that I learned because of what some people would call Hoteppers. Vast majority, not the vast majority, but a lot of the world is using that information to a certain degree, whether they know it or not. I don't know if they really know all the time. But back to True Detective. On the first season, they're chasing these people called the occult. OCCULT. Occult meaning the hidden. But there's a certain stereotype with that. I'll just break this down real quick. Matthew McConaughey's character is like the occult. Everything he's saying is occult type stuff. He's talking about like philosophies and spiritual stuff and religious stuff. Woody Harrelson, his character, keeps trying to shut him up. He's like, I wonder why we're here, and I wonder why we incarnated, and blah, 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 blah. And he's going, and then the guy's like, you need to be quiet. You need to shut up. Stop talking. We don't want to hear that type of stuff. So he keeps trying to shut him down. No different than the agent in The Matrix. I think that was the connection I was going to make earlier. Matthew McConaughey keeps going on. Now, that's the symbology. That's the hidden. So that's the occult inside the show, which is about the occult. They're chasing down a group that they're saying are the occult. They're saying that they're the devil worshippers, and they're doing all this crazy bad stuff. Now that would be the stereotypical occult, like, these scary boogeymen people, whatever, you know what I'm saying? So they're showing the apparent, and then these people is what the real message is, and that's the hidden. Matthew McConaughey is the occult. The other guy is like trying to block his ascension, I guess you would say, or his rise in knowledge, and he's even seeing colors and seeing different stuff. So I think that's the symbology there. And then you look at who they're chasing, they're just like some inbred people that aren't really super smart, but they're in positions of power. It's like the fake woke people. Then there's the real woke people, which is Matthew McConaughey. Then you got Woody Harrelson, which is the regular people. If that makes sense. I think I'll stop there because I'm not going to have enough time to break down too much, because it's kind of hard to explain, because if you don't know, then you don't really know. So it's really complex. But if you know, then you know. And if you don't know, then you don't know. But once you know, then you'll know that you know, because everything that you see, you'll be like, oh, I know how how that connects to what I know. So now I know that I'm in the know.